What is up, guys? James Carter TV here for yet another edition of my 32 teams in 32 days 2015 NFL season preview videos I've been making for each and every team in the NFL in the month of August. And today we are talking about the Houston Texans. And Texans fans, we need to have a very difficult conversation because throughout this entire video, I will be telling you things that you do not want to hear. Now, these may be things that you know subconsciously and don't want to admit, or these may be things that you really don't even believe, and you're going to come at me in the comments, or you're going to yell at me, you're going to tell me that I'm wrong, and that's fine, you're entitled to that. But you guys are in trouble, and it starts at the quarterback position. But we will get into all of that later. First, we're going to talk about your strengths, then we'll get into your weaknesses, then I'll give you my win-loss prediction based on the toughness of the Houston Texans schedule. With that said, let's start with the strength. Or really, I guess there's only two strengths on this football team to me. All right, so the first one, the defensive line. And this is headlined by J.J. Watt, who continues to be the best defensive player in the NFL. He works harder than anyone in the NFL, and because of that, he sees results. So obviously, J.J. Watt continues to be the pinnacle of the cornerstone of this defense. But keep in mind that with J.J. Watt, you guys went 2-14. So even though he may be great, even though he may be fantastic, with J.J. Watt in 2013, you guys went 2-14. So just having J.J. Watt is not good enough, all right? And that's going to lead me to what I'm saying later on in this video. Next to him, you have Vince Wilfork, who you signed in free agency, took him away from the New England Patriots, although I guess they really didn't want him, so I guess you didn't really take him away. Yes, he is a really good run defender, and he will be able to bottle things up because Louis Nix III has not been able to go into that spot and play well for you. But he is kind of on the older side. He's about 33 now, I believe. And he's only going to be in there on rushing downs, which does not even exist in the NFL anymore. I mean, even on a 3rd and 3, I mean, a team's looking to throw the football. So really, you're looking at a player that really, you don't know how much success you're going to, or how much he's going to be able to use them successfully, because on passing down, he's not going to be much of a presence for you. So that's something to keep in mind. But the problem is with the defensive line is on the right side, you have Jared Crick, who really isn't very good. Now, you have Jeffrey Pagan behind him, who hasn't played much. But that's pretty much a big weak point on this defensive line. But when you have the best in the NFL is something, and you have one of the best run stuffers on your defensive line out of 3 members of your defensive line, I'll say that's a pretty good position for you. All right, next strength on this team is their secondary, including Jonathan Joseph, Kareem Jackson, and first-round draft pick Kevin Johnson out of UCF. Now, Kareem Jackson, they re-signed in free agency, and yet they still felt the need to go get Kevin Johnson. Maybe that's because they believe that the play of Jonathan Joseph is being depreciated over the past couple years, and they can't expect him to play at a high level anymore. I don't know, I guess so. Because I really didn't understand that pick. I thought they should have went offensively. But, with that said, this looks to be a menacing 3-part cornerback duo. And then the safeties aren't bad either, as you have Raheem Moore at the free safety position, and you have, I believe, Stevie Brown at the strong safety position. Stevie Brown isn't going to knock anyone's socks off, but just getting DJ Swearinger out will be a positive for your secondary. Now, this is where, to me, the strengths stop. Now, you could make an argument for the offensive line. You have Dwayne Brown at left tackle, who's really good. You have Brandon Brooks at right guard, who's really good. But then I think that's where the really good talk stops. You have Derek Newton at right tackle, he's okay, he's serviceable, but he'll have his bad games in there. You have Jones in at center, Ben Jones, I believe. Yeah, and that's another okay guy. But then the left guard, you're starting Xavier Su'a-Filo, second-round draft pick in the 2014 NFL draft. Didn't play much, if at all, last year. I don't know what you're going to get from him. Will he even start? Because Quessenberry looks to challenge him as well. So I guess the offensive line is a strength, but a very small one. Now, with that said, there's weaknesses on this team. The biggest one, the one that's staring in the face and yelling at you, is their quarterback position. And it includes Brian Hoyer, who has been named the starter recently for this team. and this means you're in trouble. And I know Texans fans are wanting to believe that, well, he took the Cleveland Browns to like a 7-4 record, so he'll be able to do the same with us, okay? That was fool's gold. And even with that, I mean, he had really, if not, he had a top 5 offensive line, and he still couldn't play well for the Cleveland Browns. Now, yes, he didn't have offensive talent in terms of wide receivers or tight ends to throw to, but Brian Hoyer is just bad. Brian Hoyer he's one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL, and what you guys need to realize is when you have one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL starting for you, you're in trouble. And that is how the NFL works. Look at the top 5 draft picks, teams that picked in the top 5 last year. You have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who started Josh McCown, one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. You have the Tennessee Titans, who had started Jake Locker, one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. You have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who started Blake Bortles, one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. If you have a bad quarterback, you are more prone to be bad. That's just the way the NFL works. And now you're starting Brian Hoyer because he was better than Ryan Mallett. And Ryan Mallett wasn't very good. You've been watching Hard Knocks. I mean, you see Bill O'Brien cussing the hell out of this guy for the mistakes he's been making out on the field. So, I mean, the quarterback position is horrible. Your wide receivers are poor, okay? DeAndre Hopkins, okay? Good. That's a good wide receiver. That's where the conversation ends, because when Nate Washington is your number 2 receiver, you're in trouble. And you can look at your division opponents and rivals in the Tennessee Titans, and you know that. You've played against these guys. You know that he's nothing special. Cecil Shorts, who looks like he's done, you want to believe that Jaelen Strong will do something for you, but he hasn't been very impressive in training camp. Keith Mumphrey, your other draft pick, hasn't really done anything to show that he's worth a damn. Keyshawn Martin hasn't done anything for you in the past 4 years. So your wide receivers outside of DeAndre Hopkins, they're bad. To be quite honest, they're bad wide receivers. Once upon a time, Nate Washington might have been good for one season in 2011. Cecil Shorts might have been good for one season, but besides that, they're bad for right now. Your tight ends, they're bad. Garrett Graham can make a play. CJ Fedorowicz showed absolutely nothing in 2014. So Brian Hoyer is given a team that is worse. The offense is worse than his Cleveland Browns offense was last year. And your running backs now, Aaron Foster is having injury issues. Let's say he comes back week 10. That's what we're talking about. But, I mean, that's the majority of the season. Alfred Blue is not very good. What do you have? 3.3 yards per carry last season? That's not very good at all. You have Hilliard behind him. Chris Polk as well. Jonathan Grimes. These guys aren't going to do anything. So we're talking about a poor running back core, a bad wide receivers. Defensively, your linebackers, I believe, are overrated. And that's saying something. Brian Cushing, if he's not tearing his ACL, which he does quite often, he really doesn't play that well. So you have Brian Cushing on one side, and your inside linebackers. Bernard McKinney, who we have to find out what he can do. Now you have Mike Muhammad and Akeem Dent also in that linebacking core. 2 very underwhelming guys. Your outside linebackers is Whitney Merciless, who I cannot believe got paid. I cannot believe that Whitney Merciless, who has not produced any more than 8 sacks. I'd be surprised if he even produced that in his NFL career. Got re-signed to the contract that he did. He's been a disappointing draft pick to me, and we want to believe that Jadeveon Clowney will be great, but he hasn't shown us anything to actually solidify that, or to the what's the type of word I'm using for? To vindicate that. I mean, he didn't play. I mean, in the games that he played last season, he wasn't very good. So he still needs another season to get acclimated to the NFL. So I think it's a very underwhelming linebacking core. So we're talking about a team that there has offensive issues. Their linebackers aren't very good. There's pieces, there's holes, there are issues. Now let's look at their schedule, and then we'll come up with a win-loss prediction for this team. Now you guys are in the AFC South. This is your saving grace, because you will face the Tennessee Titans and you will face the Jacksonville Jaguars, and those will be wins for you. Now you're not going to sweep them, all right? So forget about that. Those days are over. But you will be able to get a win on both of them. Now you also find yourselves going up against the NFC South. This will be tough for you. I mean, You may beat Tampa Bay, but I think that's it. I think you lose in Carolina. I think you lose to New Orleans, and I think you lose in Atlanta. You guys also go up against the AFC East, including trips to Miami. I think that's a loss. Trips to Buffalo. I think that's a loss. You host New England. I think that's definitely a loss. And you host the New York Jets. You can beat them. All right, now you guys also have to face the Kansas City Chiefs. You host them. It'll be tough. And you go to the Cincinnati Bengals. I think you lose that game. And I really don't like the Houston Texans this season. And it's okay, though, because now Bill O'Brien is going to be able to draft his project. And maybe he could draft him anyway, even if they made the playoffs, because I don't think he's very good. I don't think no one's really going to care about him. Christian Hackenberg, quarterback out of Penn State. Bill O'Brien will not have the opportunity to draft him after what I believe will be a poor Houston Texans season. Now, feel free to come back to this video and to yell at me and to tell me I was wrong, I was stupid, I was a clown, and maybe you're right. Best case scenario, to me, with their quarterback situation, 6-10. I mean, Brian Hoyer, guys. Brian Hoyer is not good. Worst case scenario, they could go 2-14 again. I mean, it could really be that bad. I mean, it really could. You had Andre Johnson, you had J.J. Watt, and you still went 2-14. And you had Arian Foster. Now, once again, Arian Foster is missing games. You look poor without him. You guys haven't looked impressive in the preseason so far. You beat the San Francisco 49ers, but you lost to the Denver Broncos, and those were two very unimpressive by the first team to me. So my prediction is 4-12. I really don't like the Houston Texans this year. I think they'll have an opportunity to draft a franchise quarterback, but I think when your franchise quarterback is poor, when his wide receivers are poor, the running back position has almost nothing, you're in trouble. And I think the Houston Texans this year are in trouble. Until next time, James Carter TV, I'm out. Peace.